Welcome back to The Explainer. All right, today we are diving into something really fascinating, a legal concept that, according to the sources we're looking at, could completely change how you see your relationship with the state. We're talking about the express trust. So let's get right into it and break down what this whole philosophy is about.
So let's just start with a really thought-provoking question, one that the sources for this explainer put front and center. What if the entire legal system that you and I operate in is based on a contract that you never even read, let alone signed? I mean, think about that for a second. That single question right there is really the key that unlocks this entire way of thinking.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this worldview, we've got to start with a really important distinction the source material makes. It's the difference between man versus person. On one hand, you have man, that's you, the natural, living, breathing individual. But on the other hand, there's this legal person, or persona. And the sources have this great analogy for it. It's like a mask that an actor puts on. It's an artificial creation, something the state made up for the world of commerce, like a taxpayer or a driver's license holder.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because that distinction leads directly to this idea of in rem jurisdiction. Now, what does that mean? Well, according to the source material, since that legal person is seen as a creation of the state, the legal system can basically claim authority over it as if it were a thing, or res in Latin. It's treated just like property. A great example they use is from maritime law, where you can actually sue a ship directly. The idea here is that your legal person can be treated in a similar way.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a pretty heavy concept. But the source material doesn't just stop at pointing out what it sees as a problem. No, it actually proposes a solution, and it's one that's supposedly rooted deep in common law. And that solution is the express trust.
So, what is an express trust really? At its core, it's a private contractual relationship. And this is the part the source material really hammers home. Its power doesn't come from the government. It comes from what they call the natural right to contract. This means it's something created entirely by the people involved in it. No permission slip from the state needed.
And check this out. This isn't some brand new idea. This quote here is from 1912. That tells you this concept has some seriously deep roots. It's described as a simple, adequate common law right. And notice that last part? It can be exercised by anyone who is sui juris. Now hold on to that term, sui juris, because we're definitely going to circle back to it. It's a big deal.
Okay, so these features right here, this is really the heart of the whole thing. This is where it gets its power, according to the sources. Because the trust is born from a private contract and not from a state charter, it's not subject to the same rules and legislative control that something like a corporation is. It's like it operates in a whole different universe, a completely separate realm governed by equity and common law.
But here's the catch. According to this philosophy, you can't just, fill out a form and create one of these things and expect it to work. It's not just about having the tool. You have to adopt a whole new mindset. You have to achieve a certain state of being, and this is where that term we mentioned earlier comes back into play. The sources call it becoming sui juris.
Sui juris. It's a Latin term, and it literally means of one's own right. The whole idea here is to get to a state of total personal competence, of total authority over your own life. It means you can manage your own affairs without needing someone else or some other entity to act as your guardian. You, yourself, become the expert of your own life and your own estate.
And I love this analogy the source material uses for this journey. It's like building a wheel. Think about it. Every single thing you study, every piece of knowledge you research and truly understand, that's another spoke you add to your wheel. And the more spokes you have, the stronger and more complete your wheel becomes, giving you that solid 360-degree perspective you need to navigate the world. All right, so to really drive home why the sources see the trust as so significant, they put it head-to-head with something we're all a lot more familiar with. Let's do a direct comparison. Trust versus corporation. This should make things crystal clear.
And wow, this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at the creation. A trust? It comes from a private contract under common law. A corporation? Nope, that's a state charter, a legislative creation. The legal basis is huge too. One is a natural right to contract, the other is a privilege granted by the government. And that single difference in their origin, it cascades down and changes everything else. Who's in control, and even which courts have a say over it. It's a fundamental difference.
So, at the end of the day, what's the point of all this? I mean, why would you go through all the trouble of studying and building your wheel and setting up this kind of structure? Well, according to the source material, it all comes down to one single powerful word: protection.
The entire philosophy is really summed up in this incredibly powerful, almost paradoxical phrase, own nothing, control everything. How does that work? Well, the idea is that the trust itself, as its own separate legal thing, is what actually owns the assets. You, as the trustee, the manager, you don't personally own any of it, but you have complete control over all of it. See the distinction? It's huge.
So we're going to leave you with the same question the source material leaves us with, and it's a big one. What is the true nature of a contract? Is it just a privilege that the state grants you, or is it a natural, fundamental right that exists between people? Because, according to this whole philosophy we've just explored, how you answer that one question, well, it changes absolutely everything about how you see the law.